Good evening, everybody. Today's lecture is about a theosophical journey to the path of illumination. And actually, that has been my quest and my questions and throughout all my theosophical life, that is more than 40 years by now, and it has been like, is there a journey, a path of illumination? I hear so much about that in other traditions. Illumination, enlightenment, etc., etc. And I always ask myself, is there such a thing in Theosophy? Do I really do my theosophical life and studies towards a path of illumination? And I found the answer, and this is what I would like to share with you. So it should have been called My Theosophical Journey, but I wanted to make it more general. So again, I'm going to share with you tonight what I have discovered in this journey, theosophical journey, towards a path of illumination. Not I'm illuminated, but I have now a clear view of what I need to do, and it may even take few lifetimes, as we all know, depending on karma and reincarnation. So I hope you enjoy, and I can share with you some of the tools and knowledge that I found in this journey. So therefore, this is the story of an average person just like me and you, everybody else who happens to study theosophy. And knowingly or unknowingly, we all in this journey towards illumination. And this is what I have learned. I love Plato and I love the Platonic studies. And Plato always said, this is a path to illumination. Remember the allegory of the cave? This is exactly what I plan to show you. Is where is the cave? What's the way out of this cave? What are the tools, knowledge, and things that we need to do to get to that moment of illumination? And what happened after that? But before we do that, I have divided this talk into three aspects. I consider myself a theosophist, which is really a student of theosophy. So I always ask myself, what does it mean to be a theosophist? Who is a theosophist? What do I need to do to become a theosophist? It's just to study every theosophical concept, idea. And by the way, I spend a lot of time still studying and understanding theosophical vocabulary, because this is how Blavatsky and others wrote. We got to know the vocabulary, and that vocabulary is critical to understand the theosophical journey and the path of illumination. More on that a little bit later. So these 3 points, who is a theosophist, the theosophical journey, and the end, the path of illumination, are 3 ideas that I'm going to cover in this lecture. Therefore, when I ask myself, who is a theosophist? Am I a theosophist? I look for guidance in the writings of HPV, of course, and I know all of you, or most of you, do the same. And I found these 7 ideas or 7 points among many in that lecture, now a little book, Practical Occultism. And she says, she wrote, it is easy to become a theosophist. 1, any person of average intellectual capacities. Did you hear the word average? That's me, definitely me. Average intellectual capacity. So I'm on the right track. And again, when I read these 7, look inside you. Are you that too? If you have any love for theosophy, love of wisdom, this is what she thought about what a theosophy should be. And to start with, it sounds so easy. Any person of average intellectual capacity. And a leaning towards the metaphysical world. Well, that's me too. I love the metaphysics. And I know you too. right? We love metaphysics. And the more occult, the better. Third, a pure life. Well, I'm starting getting in trouble there. A pure life. That is extremely difficult. For her, probably it was very simple to say that, right? She's reading also from a manual for the chelas, for those disciples in that fraternity that her masters belong. And a pure life is something to, to improve. Therefore, immediately on number 3, I told myself, Martin, what does it mean to have a pure life? And knowing that I don't qualify to say pure life, I need a plan. And that is the workshop of my life. That is part of my journey to understand how to do that, to become that. And so the fourth, unselfish life. Well, I am unselfish till the moment I'm not. It's very simple. And so everybody, isn't that true? We all very unselfish till someone wants to take my home. Or, I mean, then I become really selfish, and so on and so on. So you know what I mean. So there must be something more than this in an unselfish life. And that's part of the exploration. Number 5 is very interesting too. Who finds more joy in helping his neighbor than in receiving help himself. And that's me most of the time. I love to help my neighbors unless I don't know them, unless they're really difficult. Otherwise, I really help them, really, truly. I really love and enjoy helping my neighbors. Yet, number 6 is one who is ever ready to sacrifice his own pleasures for the sake of others. Well, I try not to think about that one. It's extremely difficult to sacrifice my own pleasures. I have very few, and well, I need to sacrifice things for the betterment of humanity and my personality. That's something to think about it, to meditate on that. Remember, this is what Blavatsky wrote. It is easy to become a theosophist. I don't know what she was thinking, but this is extremely difficult. And number 7 is the best of all. It's so Plato. And who love truth, goodness, wisdom for their own sake, not for a God who is going to pardon me, or for the sake of a better next life or nether life, or avoiding hell, which is what we live here, especially in COVID, is hell, right? But not for the benefit they may confer. Look at that. To, who love truth. Well, nobody knows who truth is. But let's be truthful, isn't that true? At least we can be as truthful as we can. This I can relate to that. Goodness. I wanted to be as good as I can. For what? For what reason? For the sake of goodness. Because that helps all of us to be human, to be civilized. We can live together and enjoy as much as we can this journey together. Wisdom is the most important one, in my opinion, because that's Prakshna Paramita, and this is the end of the voice of the silence. And there is where we're going to get Prakshna Paramita. So truth, goodness, and wisdom are 3 that I really relate to. I study them in Plato's and Neoplatonism a lot. And the condition, what's interesting about this through is what Plato said. What you know that you are in this path when you see beauty everywhere, because beauty is the expression of what's truthful, what is good, what is wise. And when you see something beautiful, really, truly beautiful, your soul is captured by that beauty. And that is the window towards illumination. I want to explore this idea more. And this is how Plato relates to the path of illumination. This idea of beauty in a flower, in a dog, in a cloud, in a river, anything, really, when you see that beauty, it shines so much. Your soul is fully captured and you are one with it, at least for a split of a second. And when you come out of that ecstasy of being one with it, in that state of absorption. It's almost like a samadhi, but you are contemplating. We can't say really samadhi at our level, but yeah, a little samadhi maybe. When we come back to our senses, what do we do? When you are in love with that flower, well, we take it, we chunk it out of the floor, put it in a flower pot, and goes into our bedroom or our living room. And that's what human is. We should not do that. We should enjoy beauty as it is and don't take it to the personal level. I know you know this, but these three are so beautiful. This is a theosophist, easy to become. There are many, many, many more that she wrote in the Key to Theosophy, in the Voice of the Silence, and so on. Please make a list of them and take it to your heart and see, am I really a theosophist? What is my daily life in this way? And make a workshop out of that, a work list and a workshop, and so on. And that's exactly what I did. Therefore, I translated HPV insights into who is a theosophist in my own way of daily life. And I really mean it. First is to study. Study theosophy, the vocabulary, the ideas, and try to illustrate them. I have some examples for you. Uh, Try to use the law of analogy and correspondences. I want to show you how to do it. Plato was the master of that. Study the ideas, imagine them, concentrate on them, right? Dharana, dhyana, samadhi, to get to prajna paramita. That's a meditation aspect. So study and meditate on what you're studying, which should be related to that truth, to that wisdom, to all the virtues, justice, goodness, beauty. Just study the best of nature can offer you and show you. The third is very difficult to do. And this is where we rob time of our lower self. The time that you spend self examining yourself, in self observation, in Atma Bodha, in self knowledge, self improvement, is time that you take from your lower self and you walk that incredible virtual imaginary bridge that we all have built, separating the lower mind from the higher mind, which is called in theosophy antaskarana or antakarana. More on that in a few minutes. Remember what Socrates said at time of his death. They were asking Socrates to stop philosophizing, and he gave that tremendous expression to the world. A life that is, you are not allowing me to self examine myself, is not worth living. If I cannot improve myself and go deeper and deeper in myself and others and help others, is not worth living. Therefore, the freedom we have, please let's use it wisely. And the result of our studies and meditation with this workshop, we got to put it in practice. This is how we move from the lower self to the higher self. With the number 4, the willful practice of virtues. To be aware when the opportunity presents itself. The virtues, there is a tremendous amount of list of virtues. Most of us know, more names for vices than virtues. Try yourself. List the virtues in one side and list vices in the other side, and you see which ones you know more. And the practice of virtue is another way that we improve ourselves, and that is enrichment. And that's the next one, enrichment of family and friends, social responsibility. We are social beings, and this is the test of our life, how we deal with ourselves, of course, and with our family and friends. We got to apply everything that we study, and we meditate and examine and observe in our knowledge and improvement to enrich ourselves, our family, and our friends. I want to add enrich ourselves in this. And of course, do not forget Plato's recommendation of gymnastic for the body and music for the soul. Gymnastic for the body is that which keep us healthy. Food and drinks and exercise, they have to be in a harmonious way with what we study, what we read, the music we hear, and so on. So please study the Republic of Plato. He goes in extremely good details. One thing he was really wrong in gymnastic for the body when he explained about food, he said no sweets. It's really bad for you. I think he didn't know about dark chocolate, but that's something for another time's discussion, what he knew or what not. But again, look at it. We are not perfect, but we can, again, by examination and observation, make improvement as we meditate and study this stuff. What is your list? This is a challenge. What is your theosophical life? How do you translate these countless of hours that we have listened to talks, read great books, not only theosophical books, but from every religion or religions and philosophies, and great people? What is your own list? So you can start with my humble list and add and remove, but make them your theosophical life, your daily theosophical life. Make it a journey towards yourself. And this, my dear friends, is what I call the theosophical journey. It is the journey of discovering, little by little, the mysteries and relationship of the universe, within ourselves too, with our human beings, and in our relationship with all of us, with our planet Earth. It's an incredible journey of discovery. And please enjoy every minute that you are aware of that journey. This is a wonderful world of divine wisdom, or Theosophia. Therefore, for the purpose of this lecture, I have divided this journey of discovery, these mysteries and relationships, into two aspects. The one provided by the secret doctrine, the mysteries of the human being and the universe. And second, the voice of the silence is the relationship of that, because that is our path towards illumination. And you will see, because that was, again, that was one of my questions. Can I explain my journey towards illumination with what I'm studying in these two great books, The Secret Doctrine and The Voice of the Silence? And the answer that I found is yes. And to tell you the truth, this is this lecture. See that there is a red arrow there. And in my point of view, after studying these two great works, I noticed that the voice of the silence is the finality of the secret doctrine. She gave us the voice in her last years of her life in London. And without that book, The Voice of the Silence, we would be crippled. We will know what that path to illumination is. And that's troublesome. And because it almost like she missed it. She could have missed it. And we would have missed at the same time an incredible source of illuminating and transforming energies that we're going to see in a few minutes. So the mysteries, and this is why we study the secret doctrine, so to speak. If we want to understand the universe and the relationship between the universe and the human being, there are unexplained wonders, which I call mysteries, which are the basis of the theosophical life. And we spend endless amount of time studying the secret doctrine. And these mysteries are are mysteries, and they will always be mysteries for our mind. And let's go over them a little bit. The biggest and most difficult mystery to explain is space. And it sounds simple, but if you think about it, space, that square, dark square, space, who made that space? Who created this space? But this is not the space that you and me are. This is the space that our universe, the white circle, is into it. Remember the secret doctrine, the prom, started with two illustrations. One is the one on the right, a dark square and a white circle in it, the white circle representing the one all, the universe, and the dark circle, space, abstract space, where this universe is. It's like an analogy, like if you have a blackboard and you draw a circle, a white circle on it, the blackboard doesn't even care who you are and who you are drawing on it. But we need the blackboard, isn't that true? To draw that circle. This is a little like an analogy with that mystery, this absolute mystery, this absolute space, with the space that our universe occupies, and we are in it. And that's an incredible feeling. And automatically we think, how many more circles are in that space? Isn't that true? How many more universes separate from us, not dimensions in our universe, but separate universes in that dark space? Well, this dark space is infinite. It's unthinkable, Blavatsky told us, quoting the Upanishad. It's unthinkable, this space, abstract space, absolute space. And yet we could ask, how many other universes, white circles, are in it? Well, the answer is very simple. With our mind, we can see countless. With our scientific brain, we will never know. Unfortunately, if Einstein is right, you need concrete space for the light, which is the information, to travel from one circle to another. But because that dark space is abstract, doesn't exist, and yet it's there, it's a mystery. Light will not travel in that. There is no akasha, there is no ether to travel on it. And therefore, we will never know physically if our great genius Einstein knows. I hope you like science fiction. This is very beautiful. It gives me goosebumps every time I think about this incredible, immense, incalculable, extensive, unimaginable dark space of that first illustration of the secret doctrine and our little universe, the white circle in it. The second mystery, I want to call them three eternities, because that's how Blavatsky called them in the first and second fundamental proposition of the secret doctrine. One is an omnipresent, eternal, boundless, and immutable principle that she also called beingness. So remember, there is an eternal, boundless, immutable principle, omnipresent, beingness, that we can sense with our intuition, and we may miss it with our senses. The second eternity is the universe itself, and is periodically manifesting and disappearing. That's our white circle. When it disappears because we're at rest, that white circle is a dark circle. She explained that in the commentaries or in the meetings of the Blavatsky Lodge. My friend Helena pointed out to me in one of the meetings, she said, oops, I think I left out something like that. I'm trying to romanticize the meeting. I left out a dark space. A dark circle, because that's a universe in rest, in Pralaya. The third eternity is the pilgrim, you and me, the monads. And what's interesting, we're going to see, is there is an obligatory pilgrimage set for us, a divine plan set for us, which at the human level, it turns into the theosophical journey. This is why this is very important. On the same token, there are other mysteries, which are the three logoi. And one, of course, is the point in the circle, the first cause. And for this, what I do usually when I'm in the mood for this is I sit down to meditate on this. And of course, relax your body, rhythmic breathing, asana and pranayama. And then relax yourself and concentrate in that point, which means absorb all what is surrounding you into that little first cause, the root of all, where we all came from, including planets, galaxies, and the whole universe. That point in the circle, that is an incredible feeling when you feel you are absorbed into the root of all, into the first cause. And you may get, if possible, if you can keep that concentration. And remember, dharana, concentration, is the second instruction in the voice of the silence. If you want to hear the voice of the silence and understand it, you must understand the nature of concentration, dharana. This is why, to understand, to listen to that spiritual voice, we got to be able to concentrate. Do you know how to concentrate? If not, this is part of your journey. Learn how to concentrate. Extremely important. Second instruction in the voice of the silent. Don't advance to the third instruction if you can't even concentrate. So please, please, read the book properly. Second instruction, dharana, learn how to concentrate, and the book will open up like a lotus flower. Therefore, then there is a second logos, which is the duality, abstract duality, spirit and matter, life, and or on another way to say it, remember there is a comma, spirit, matter, and life, or the other as, or in another word or other words, that two terms of duality also she explained as the spirit of the universe, comma, Purusha and Prakriti. And I have an illustration for you in a few minutes. The third logos is cosmic ideation, and this is the source of our illumination. We're going to pay a lot of attention to that third logos. Mahat, the universal world soul, the universal soul. Anima mundi for the Hermetic tradition. Alaya for in Sanskrit or in the voice of the silence. The nature and journey, the mystery of the monad, is another one. And that is given to us in the third fundamental proposition. Now that we are aware that there is an abstract space, the dark background of our universe. Remember that illustration, the dark background? And then there is another mystery, which is the white circle. We know that there is a universe, and we know that there is an eternity in that universe constantly, no beginning, no end, constantly in periodically manifesting, periodically contracting or going to rest in Pralaya in Sanskrit, you know, like day and night, life and death. That's an image of this duality, but it's the universe. The other mystery is you and me, the monad, the obligatory pilgrimage in the second point. Therefore, when you study the third fundamental proposition in the prone of the secret doctrine, you will find the following. There is a fundamental identity of all souls. Souls, remember, in Theosophy is the Buddhi aspect of the monad. A monad is Atma Buddhi, two principles of the seven principles of the human being. So the fundamental identity of all souls, divine souls or Buddhists, with the universal oversoul, which we saw that she called it the third logos. Remember that? Universal soul, universal oversoul. She also said the obligatory pilgrimage of every monad, you and me, soul, right? As part of the former. So to meditate, to form an image of what you're going to concentrate, of the relationship between the universal soul and us, our soul, she said, a spark of the former. Later on, she's going to say a drop of the ocean. So these are two images that you can use to meditate on that. Remember, meditation, I'm going to call from now on a state that you are relaxed, breathing rhythmically, and abstracting all your five senses. And now you concentrating, you contemplate, and you are absorbed. When you are absorbed, you gain illumination of what you are meditating on through the cycles of incarnation, according to cyclic and karmic laws. So in this third fundamental proposition, please, you're going to find the guidance you need to understand your journey from the very beginning, that we move out of a state of pralaya in that root of all. We were all absorbed there. You and me, we were all in that point. And that's a symbol, of course, the root of all, the germ of all. We were all there doing what? Well, if you ask me, I was snoring, sleeping really well for 7 eternities. I love sleeping. I sleep like a tree trunk, that is. And probably I was kicking you, and my wife is laughing, and so on. And that's where we were. And all of a sudden, time to move on. The universe comes into being, and what happens to us? Obligatory pilgrimage. Most of us cry. Oh no, not again. There is no choice here. Even for people who cannot bear suffering in the pain of this world and commit suicide, they come back. We will come back. It's an obligatory pilgrimage. Feel it in your blood. Feel it in your soul. This is very important. This is Theosophy, just 101. Wait till we go to 103. And here is a divine soul will have an independent conscious existence when pass through every elemental form, and second, acquire individuality of the first by natural monadic impulse, and this is the triple evolutionary scheme in the secret doctrine. We're not going to go through that, but there is so much to study that, to see what we did so many eons ago. And then by self-induced and self-devised. These two words are so important, self-induced and self-devised effort. This is where our daily workshop comes into being. Every day we need to figure out who are we, how we improve ourselves, by observing ourselves, asking our loved ones to tell us about us, by studying and applying ourselves, checked by karma. Then slowly but surely, we move from an atom to a Dhyani Buddha. I hope you enjoyed the journey, the root of all. The secret doctrine gave us a beautiful picture of who we were from the very, very beginning, and the laws that apply to us. Another great mystery is what deity is in the first fundamental proposition. And she told us later in page 152, volume 1 of the secret doctrine, that deity is law, and law is eternal and uncreated, the one law. If scientists can relate to this law in singular, this is the unifying law that they are looking, and they can get it. And they cannot get it, in my opinion, because they are not theosophically inclined to add all the laws as aspects of the one law. Theosophy teaches us that this one law, this law which is deity, and look how interesting it is. Scientists call them the law. Theologists or in religion, they call it deity. In theosophy, we said they both one. It doesn't matter which way you look at it. They're the same. Isn't that beautiful? So it's true that theosophy, with that point of view, if we can keep it in our eyes, in our intuition, we can integrate science and religion, philosophy and arts, and everything. Therefore, HPV tells us in the secret doctrine that the law unfolds everything in the manifested world on a sevenfold principle. And that is done by countless, look at that word, countless. There is no beginning and no end. Circular planetary chains composed of 7 globes, 4 lower planes, and only the lowest is the visible planet. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the difficult part of theosophy. It's extremely technical. If for you it's good enough to know what we said before, where we come from, without details, that is good enough. If you want to study more the esoteric aspect of every plane, every principle, that's also okay. There is plenty literature to use our intellect and our intuition. There are many, many, many more mysteries in Volume 2 of the Secret Doctrine. I listed some here, but you can see that it's an endless study. And I do not promote an endless study, but I promote an endless self-examination, an endless observation in ourselves, and improvement. It's through the virtuous life, the paramitas, that we're going to get illumination, yet our mind wants some explanations. So we do need to study and vocabulary so we can relate ourselves. But let's don't spend all our life intellectualizing all the concepts and terms that are in theosophy. It's endless what our mind can come up with. Therefore, one of the greatest mystery of all, in my opinion, and the one I love the most to study, is the relation between the human principle and the hierarchy of divine beings. Don't forget, the theosophical journey starts with the understanding that the monads emerge from the state of absorption within the soul of the universe, anima mundi, or alaya, and evolving through countless series of planetary chains, and that should be a comma. In time, the monads return to the soul of the universe, to anima mundi, or alaya. This we do in every cycle after the period of manifestation and rest. Isn't that beautiful? It's so simple, the obligatory pilgrimage. The difficult part is to be a human being. Now let's study what theosophy means by the soul of the universe. Remember, that's where we came from, the third logos, and that's where we're going to. So if you like these mystical studies, as she called it in the Voice of the Silence, please study that as much as you can, of course, till you, with your mind, understand the term, the ideas, the vocabulary, evoke that initial idea of it, meditate on it. Remember, apply dharana and dhyana, concentrate, contemplate, and repeat to improve, fine-tune the idea of it until illumination. Easy to say, huh? I'm still trying to get the initial idea fine-tuned, but eventually I'll get to it. And so what I'm going to ask you, please, if you get there first, come back to us and teach us. And this is the path of renunciation. Very important. Here we go. In this simple diagram, I have put in one page the whole mystery that I spoke of. First, there is an analogy between the universe and the human being on the left. You see that? Universe, human being, and you can apply the law of analogy and correspondence. What is that law? The whole secret doctrine is based on that analogy. And they are drawn in symbols, ideas, words, vocabulary that are very human to understand something that is a mystery. For instance, stanza 1 in Cosmogenesis, sloka 1, the eternal parent. Well, parent is something we know, right? Because what parent represents with the word eternal is a mystery. But we know what a parent is, right? The eternal parent, wrapped in her ever invisible, we understand what's an ever invisible robes, right? That's very human. Slumber, oh, we know what slumber. I do it every night really well. And so on, so on. This is analogy. You see that? So by knowing what is close to our in our physical world and in our life, we can understand the mysteries of the universe. That's how we're going to apply. I'm going to give you another illustration later on, because we got to know this. Blavatsky is the law that will take you from below to the above. Remember, like the hermetical axiom, as below, so above, as above, so below. So we got to know how to use this if we want to make progress in this mystical, esoteric, occult, theosophical life. So from above to below, on the center of this slide, you will have the word absolute. We understand the dark background. You have the red arrow on that illustration, right? And then below that is the word that she uses very often. Very few people use it, is absoluteness. And that's Parabrahman and Mula Prakriti, depending if it's in Pralaya, Parabrahma, Mula Prakriti is in manifestation. They're both one. Mula Prakriti is the veil of Parabrahman, because you don't see the darkness once it's full of light. Now, Blavatsky have said that Parabrahman is also the absolute, but when she really wanted to be very specific, look for it in the Secret Doctrine as well as in the commentaries that or meetings that she gave in the Blavatsky Lodge. She said Parabrahman is really absoluteness, because it means it participates of the quality of the absolute, which means what? A dark circle on a dark background is all dark. So it participates on the quality. Do you see that? If not, please meditate on that. That's very simple. So Manvantara means whiteness. We have manifestation, and we have then the first logos is the point in the circle. The second logos, I only put what I could write, the spirit of the universe is not shown in the diagram. And the third logos, the most important part, the fabric of the universe. You and me and everything else is the fabric of the universe. We are a spark of that, we're a drop of that. And the name is Soul of the Universe, Alaya. And if you like Hermetic literature, Anima Mundi. This is impressive, this is very important. It's the source of meditation, the object of the voice of the silence. To be able to find Alaya, and it becomes our master. Look for it, very important. In the human aspect of it, we have a monad, Atma, which participates of the nature of Parabrahman, Mula Prakriti, and Buddhi, which we saw, the third fundamental proposition tells us that our soul, Buddhi, participates of the nature of Alaya. From there we came, from there we go. Notice that manas is our mental principle, is dual, higher manas, lower manas, and there is a ladder, an imaginary bridge between the higher and manas and the lower mana, caused by our own lower self and selfishness. We build that bridge, and now our job is to shorten it, and so on. Please study this diagram really well. It tells you so much, because walking that bridge, you're walking the path to yourself, to heal the principle of manas. And then you become enlightened because the light of the Buddha is in you. And this is the next topic, the path of illumination. It begins with the focusing dharana of the mind into the source of light. We want illumination, right? Remember, in the voice of the silence, it tells us this source of light is alaya, the universal soul or anima mundi. Don't forget that. That is what our purpose is when she says dharana is the intense and perfect concentration of the mind in one internal object, not external, internal. And then later on, she's going to say, use alaya for that purpose. Now you can use a virtue, you can use an icon, but always bring it within you. If you use something like a Tibetan tanka or a virtue, or you want to concentrate in something, internalize it. This is very important. Remember, look and study and understand and practice dharana and concentration. One more word in dharana. When you practice dharana, you're going to find out, because this is part of the journey, that as you concentrate, your mind is going to try to do three things. One, to think about it, to reflect on it, and to dwell on it, and so on. No, these are mental activity. This is not the dharana of the voice of the silence. The dharana of the voice of the silence is the one that takes us naturally into contemplation. You are focused so much into it that you are one with it. Like the example of walking in the street, you see a beautiful flower, and for a nanosecond, 1 second, 2 seconds, you're one with it. Or a tree, or a cloud, or a beautiful car, or whatever. That moment is that. It's that moment. You forget yourself, you forget the object, beauty captures your soul. It happens to us almost every day, I would say every day. Enjoy those moments, capture those moments. Now, Blavatsky told us, based on the voice of the silence, a manual for the chelas, that the source of that light has to be, for what we study in cosmogenesis in the secret doctrine, alaya, where we came from. It's the source of light. So what is that? Well, for that, Plato gave us a great teaching on that in book 6 and 7 of the Republic. Please study those 2 chapters of Plato's Republic. They will give you so much in this path. And what he told us is there is an analogy that ties the world of science with the world of philosophy. For us, theosophy and theology. The physical world, that what we know, is analogous to the metaphysical world. And he said, these are his words, not in English though, in Greek. Just as the sun provides the light for our eyes to see physical things, so the good, which Blavatsky told us is alaya, the good provides the light. She gave us the key, right, to understand Plato. The good provides the light needed for the mind to contemplate the ideas. These ideas are the most important thing that we can do. The greatest idea of all of them is the idea of alaya. Now remember, an idea for Plato is not the idea that we all have. Oh, I got an idea what to do for dinner. That is a very low idea. Plato did not have that in his mind as a definition of idea. But that's extremely low, very, very personal. For Plato, the idea is something to contemplate, nothing physical. In other words, if you were Zeus, the architect of the universe, if you are like you're going to be in the future at the Anchohan, at the Anibuddha, contemplating the pre-existing ideas of the universe to establish this world, this universe, the way it is, in other words, our divine plan, Imagine that. If you would be in this very moment, that demiurgos, that architect, that great architect of the universe, what are the ideas that you need? Abstract ideas, full of light when you apply your dhyana power on it, your contemplating powers on it and on them, and you activate them. What are those ideas that you need to manifest this universe? This is a simple question that Plato asked in the Timaeus, another great book that please have it near you and read it all the time if you want to know more about this. So therefore, again, the good provides the light. Alaya provides Fohat. Alaya, I want to translate it theosophically. Alaya provides the light of the Vapakriti, the Fohat needed for the mind to contemplate these ideas and become illuminated. Isn't that beautiful? This example, I have it here to study, so you can relate to it as you see it, and you can take notes if you like to study the law of analogy and correspondence. Remember, Blavatsky, the masters, Plato, Jesus, all of them uses this law of analogy and correspondences to explain things, but they didn't explain it. Only Plato did. And so the question is, A is to B as C is to D, where A and B is what we know, and C and D is what we want to know. In the Secret Doctrine, I have a quote that it says, Fohat is the steed and the thought is the rider. So the analogy is, as a rider is to the steed, so the Dhyan Chohan's thought, their power of concentration and contemplation is to Fohat. So by knowing the relationship, look at that. Once you establish the analogy, you can establish what the rider is in relation to the horses, the steeds. And then you can say by correspondence, it applies as the Dhyan Chohans to Fohat. I hope I can explain this in my poor English. But to study analogy and correspondence, you first establish the analogy. In one side, what you know, mostly related to the physical universe, remember Plato, and on the right side is what you want to know. Establish all the possible by brainstorming, all the correspondences, delete the ones that you think it may not apply, and study those correspondences. I hope you enjoy this. Therefore, there is a beautiful relationship between the monad and alaya. Stanza 3 of Cosmogenesis tells us how the monads emerge from their state of absorption within this one, within the soul of the universe. Of course, the one is the first logos, the root of all. But by the time the monads wake up, like you and me, we are now in the third moment, which is called the soul of the universe. Study this, it's very important. Illustrate, and explain it to yourself and explain it to your friends and share that. Remember what the idea is. An idea is exactly what we are after. These are not the daily ideas that we have, but the Platonic ideas necessary for the universe to be the way it is. And therefore, based on Plato's Timaeus, the Secret Doctrine has this paragraph. Fohat, at present unknown to the Western speculation, and that's one of the great, beautiful teachings of Theosophy. Please study Fohat, is what activates those ideas, right? Is the bridge by which the ideas, look at this is from the Secret Doctrine word by word, existing in the divine thoughts, in the divine mind of Zeus, if you are reading the Demiurgos, if you're reading Plato, are impressed on cosmic substance as the laws of nature. Look how everything is tied together. Fohat is that That's the dynamic energy of cosmic ideation. Ideation, cosmic ideation, is what's happening when the Dianchohans contemplate those ideas. And Dianchohans being so active, so positive, ideas being so receptive, full of possibilities, Fohat comes into being. There is that big bang, explosion. Spirit and matter are joined by Fohat. The universe is emanated, manifested, laws of nature happens. One of those great laws is analogy and correspondence, and we can study. This is very beautiful. Please enjoy these theosophical journeys. Study this illustration. Illustrate it at your own words. Life is so short for us. We got to study them. And more than that, feel them, contemplate them, or at least study and concentrate, use the law of analogy. Things are very illuminating for us. With illumination, even a little bit, comes transformation. And that transmutation of lower manas to higher manas allow us to see that light more and more and more. So what are those pre-existing ideas? This is part of what we need to understand. And so in your life, this is so practical. What are the ideas that I need in my life to be creative, to make my life well worth it, to have my marriage well worth it and grow, and to share with the world? And this is as above, so below. Please use this analogy for everything. You will find an incredible creative world because Fohat will be mastered by you, by the power of Dharana. That brings Prajna Paramita and illumination. Very, very impressive, the theosophical literature. Therefore, study the pre-existence ideas, study Alaya, study Fohat, the light of the Logos, right? Study Plato. He calls it, by the way, in this translation by Rouse, in book 7, after the myth of the cave, he says, an idea is the most brilliant light of being. Don't try to define it. Try to see it with your eyes of contemplation, with the eyes of your soul. You will never will be able to define what justice is, what beauty is, what alaya and the monad is. Never what Fohat is. Ideas in singular are impossible to define. Plato warned us. They are objects of contemplation because what you see is a brilliant light now shaped by manas in the object of your studies. All the ideas are one, the first principle. This is a theosophical, beautiful teaching. I want to read you about a light, something from this incredible Platonist called Dionysius and later called pseudo-Dionysius, when they figure out that, especially Martin Luther, he and many others figure out that when they study Dionysius, that the whole Catholic Church is based on, they were studying Plato. And so he said, therefore, this has to be pseudo-Dionysius. We have to stop studying Dionysius. We have to go back to the Bible. It was big movement. Back to the Bible, forget Dionysius. What a theosophist does, back to Dionysius. Don't forget the Bible, but back to Dionysius. So in one of his books, and this is a wonderful, all of the available books are in a complete work of pseudo-Dionysius. In the book Divine Names, look what he says. And yet, on the other hand, the good, Plato, right, the idea of the good, alaya, is not absolutely incommunicable to everything. By itself, it generously reveals, reveals means, there's a luminous revelation, right? Transcendent being, granting enlightenment proportionate to each being, and thereby draws sacred mind. upwards to its permitted contemplation. Look at this beautiful understanding of our path to illumination, to participation, and to the state of becoming like it. Therefore, when I want to reshape it theosophically, by contemplating the idea of the good, the idea of the good communicates, provides you the light, which we know is Fohat, right? Which is the result of the divine beings, the luminous seven, contemplating, they are the lords of contemplation, the Anichohans, right? The ideas are activated with that Fohat and the light beams out. And then this transcended being, Fohat, grants illumination. But remember, in the way that we are able and permitted to contemplate. And that word permitted in Plato means the state of virtuous life that you are in. That's why we cannot forget to be virtuous at any time. And what happened to those, I'm going to continue. I just love this. And the whole book, all the books of the pseudo-Dionysius, please have them near you with the Plato books and the Voice and the Secret Doctrine. What happened to those that rightly and properly make this effort, dharana, it's an incredible effort to concentrate. Please enjoy that moment that you're concentrating in an internal idea and trying to be that creative and perceive that light. They do not venture towards an impossibly daring sight of God. We don't want to see the mystery of the universe, the first logo, Parabrahma. No, one beyond what is duly granted them. Nor do they go tumbling downwards where their own natural inclination would take them. No. Instead, and this is so mystical, they are raised firmly and unswervingly, sorry about my English, upwards in the direction of the ray. Remember, it's the bridge of Fohat, which enlightens them. You got it? We go into the idea of alaya, necessary for this universe to be the way it is. With a love, which is one of the laws of the laws, compassion, love, goodness. With a love matching the illuminations granted them, that they take flight reverently, wisely, in all holiness. So impressive. Therefore, the voice of the silence is the culmination. It takes us by the hand in this journey towards the illumination. And at the very end, look at this, fragment 3 and paragraph 310, there, 313, 3 before the end, it says, thou art enlightened. After you have looked at the fragment 1 with all the possible paths that you have. You know, you take fragment 1 and you see all the paths. The last one, of course, shown is the path of the Eightfold Yoga path, which includes dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. But you have the first few pages, and then the sounds, and et cetera, et cetera. I gave a lecture seminar in Crotona. If you want, please look for it. I divided fragment 1 in all the possible ways. We all so different in our temperament. We have different ways to do it. But at the very end of that, it says to us, thou art enlightened, choose thy way. Which means once we are illuminated and we attune ourselves to compassion, that means those two dreaded extra skandhas that the masters and Blavatsky told us, the esoterics, Akayaditi, and Atavada, they are the ones who are diseases, illnesses, virus of our soul, of our heart. They separate us from each other and us from alaya. If we can overcome that illness, that's why they explain in the Voice of the Silence these two extra skandhas. If we can remove them and live compassion, we can choose to illuminate ourselves forever in nirvana, the path of liberation or come back to help others. And that is why it tells us compassion. Is there compassion in your soul? And that is exactly what is the subject matter of the book. Once we go through the path of understanding what a theosophy is, those great mysteries of the universe and the human being, and we find our path, our pilgrimage, and we find in the voice of the silence those words that are dedicated to the few, and later on in the preface, she says, to the few mystics, and later on in the instruction, the esoteric instructions, she said, to to you few mystics who will find the answers to all your questions, the voice is dedicated, who have mastered the powers of dharana. And you can now contemplate this great idea, excuse me, and mainly dhyana, through dhyana, contemplation, alaya, the soul of the universe, we really discover the illuminating property of the universe, of our heart and the heart of the universe. And, and this is the story of my life that I wanted to share with you. Thank you all.